Web lecturing from quarantine. I've lost count of the days, but I know one thing. Exam period has struck. Dear teacher, I have trouble understanding the tool we are using to make the exam on and feel very uncomfortable making tests this way. Dear teacher, I live in a small house with 7 other students and have trouble focusing during the test. I'm in a very messy shed with a bad Wi-Fi connection and don't know what to do. Dear teacher, I'm afraid that I will be accused of fraud by the proctoring system simply because I cannot live up to the rules posed for examination. The website says it's my responsibility to live up to them, but it's impossible. Dear teacher, my browser crashed halfway the exam and it was impossible to log back in. To all those students, I would like to say, are their guidelines anyway. Of course, as teachers, it is our responsibility to make sure that students are treated fairly during their exam. And that means that we have to do everything that we can to avoid that students use resources during their examination that, or can benefit from resources during their examination that were not intended as part of the exam. And for that, using the digital means that we now have to use for our examination because we cannot meet in big exam rooms, we are relying on all kinds of technological tricks. For those tricks to work, students have to adapt to new kinds of examination, have to adapt to new kinds of rules, and that gives a lot of stress. I think it is also our duty as teachers to alleviate this stress as much as possible. Last night I helped out a fellow teacher of mine giving a resit to some 20 students. So he prepared it using ANS, and then we asked the students to join a Canvas conference call, just like I showed you in my previous videos. And when you open up Canvas, there is an option where you can say block all users. And with that option, you can make sure that they can still show their webcam, but they cannot see one another anymore. They can only hear your voice, only see your webcam, and they can only have private chat messages with you. And that makes it possible to really use this as a monitoring system, but it also gives the additional effect that the students are actually feeling your presence there. And that puts them at ease. You can also talk to the students and just tell them that, well, this is an exam, that we understand in what kind of a difficult situation they are, and that of course we will not accuse them of fraud unless we really have a very good reason to do so, and not just simply because something went wrong. We can also put them at ease saying, okay, if something goes wrong uploading files to the system because you were shut out, we will take this into account. It's not that everyone is immediately getting a 0 or a no-show simply because the system failed for some reason. In practice, it helps if you prepare a slide like this one, in which you tell the students the rules of the evening, basically. And it also helps if you set up your exam in such a way that the students can start it themselves. Instead of giving a fixed start time and end time, you give them the option to start it themselves and to be in the exam for the allotted time period. This makes sure that if there are any technical problems in the beginning, that does not lead to extra stress because the exam has already started. After all the students have gone to their exam, you can basically sit back and relax and watch 30 screens or so at the same time on your screen to see if anything goes wrong. And when a student waves at the screen, then you look at your private chat and you answer any question that the student may have. That's the ideal case. Of course, there are also problems. I was, for example, trying to record the whole session using OBS, and it works, except that OBS is a very heavy package, and halfway during the exam my video started to stall because the browser could not keep up anymore. I first thought it was the server that was the problem, so I didn't do anything, but then I found out that if I log in a second time in the Canvas conference, and it's a good thing to know that you can actually be logged into the same conference multiple times. If I log in a second time, then in that second login, the video started working again. So then I could log out of the previous one. Those kind of tricks you actually have to figure out, and sometimes you have to figure them out on the spot while an exam is going on in such a way that the student, they don't notice it. It's a good thing I managed, they didn't notice it, but I must say I was afraid a little myself, and I was glad to remember that the rules are guidelines anyway.